Another day and another Bitcoin price dip. Just when Bitcoin looks to be ready to explode to the upside, the opposite happens. What's going on here? Is the price being suppressed? Today I look at some data to try to get to the bottom of the current state of the Bitcoin bull run, and my findings suggest perhaps maybe this time really is different. Plus, Michael Saylor breaks his silence on the self-custody controversy, and we look at his view on the current state of Bitcoin adoption and why he thinks 2025 is the year that things really get interesting. So here we are, drawing lines on charts, looking at past performance and cycle dynamics, calculating where we are in the Bitcoin cycle, and preparing for what feels like the inevitable parabolic rise that Bitcoin historically does every 4 years. But then once again, we get faked out. Bitcoin again looked ready to break out to the upside towards all-time highs, and once again faltered as we fell back down to 65K today. This has now officially been 7.5 months of choppy sideways price action below the all-time high. So we can understand why many are getting impatient and calling for the all-out cancellation of the bull run. But I'm here to inject some sense into you. So let's go through some reasons why we may just be much earlier in this cycle than history leads us to believe. First, let's take a look at this chart from CryptoQuant, which shows the accumulation of whales, or entities with hundreds or thousands of Bitcoin, which is represented by the purple lines, lined up with the Bitcoin price represented by the white. What this chart tells us is just how early we are in this cycle. As the process of accumulation is very strong, the price hasn't followed suit as it has in previous cycles, which leads me to believe we have not topped in accumulation yet. The momentum being built here is most definitely historic and quite chilling. Now let's look at this zoomed-in comparison of 2020 and 2024 new whale accumulation. And we can see that the two-step trend of whale accumulation front-ran the eventual parabolic run in 2021. So this leads me to believe we might have another big run-up in whale accumulation before we really see the fireworks. Now let's take a look at HODL waves, which is basically a visual representation that shows how long different groups of Bitcoin have remained unmoved in wallets. Bitcoin's one-year HODL wave has dropped to 64.36%. And as you can see, historically, HODL wave declines have occurred in bull markets as new buyers bid coins out of the hands of existing hodlers. This chart would suggest that we are just entering the very early stages of the bull market. Now let's look at this chart from Galaxy Research, which looks at the nominal or current Bitcoin price, represented in orange, compared to the real Bitcoin price, which in this case is in 2020 dollars, corrected for the massive inflation we've seen over the past 4 years since then. This tells us that when we correct the current Bitcoin price for inflation, we definitely have not started the bull run yet, as we haven't hit actual all-time highs yet. We are actually much closer to the infamous 58K levels still. 58K forever, am I right? So what do all these charts tell us about where we are in the Bitcoin cycle? I would say that they tell us that we're extremely early in this cycle, and perhaps much earlier than historically we should be at this point after previous halvings. The bullish setup that has been simmering and pressurizing is still gaining steam. The longer we consolidate in these levels, the more compressed this spring becomes. The more compressed the spring becomes, the higher it launches when we finally let loose. All things are still pointing in this direction, so don't let impatience and frustration creep in. Keep learning and increase your conviction by learning more about the technology and its capabilities to change the world for the better. I mean, look, central banks are still cutting rates, as Canada announced just today their biggest interest rate cut in over 4 years, slashing them by 50 basis points. Plus, Bernstein Research just put out a Bitcoin price prediction of $200,000 by the end of 2025 and called this forecast conservative. A notable quote from the research paper: "If you are a Bitcoin skeptic, maybe a limited supply, store of value digital asset is not such a bad thing in a world where US debt hits new records, 35 trillion now, and threats of inflation still loom. If you like gold here, you should love Bitcoin even more." Whales are accumulating at record pace because they know, just like Paul Tudor Jones knows in his interview on CNBC we featured in yesterday's video.
All roads lead to inflation.
But does all roads lead to inflation, therefore gold is a good investment? Is Bitcoin a good investment to you?
I'm long gold. I'm long Bitcoin. I think commodities are so ridiculously underowned. So I'm long commodities. I think most young people find their inflation hedges via the NASDAQ. That's also been great. It's probably some combination. I probably have some basket of gold, Bitcoin, commodities, and NASDAQ, something like that. And I would own zero fixed income.
Nothing stops the inflation train, and Michael Saylor still thinks we're in year 0 of institutional adoption. Before I show the clip, I want to first point out that he finally broke his silence over the self-custody controversy he caused, which we talked about in yesterday's video. He released a statement on X saying, quote, "I support self-custody for those willing and able, the right to self-custody for all, and freedom to choose the form of custody and custodian for individuals and institutions globally. Bitcoin benefits from all forms of investment by all types of entities and should welcome everyone." So with that out of the way, let's take a look at a short clip of Saylor's beliefs that 2025 will actually be year one of institutional adoption.
We're only 4 years into the, to the crazy years. And really, January 2024 was really the beginning of this era. Maybe this is year 0 of institutional adoption. When we have regulatory acceptance, bank acceptance, and accounting acceptance of Bitcoin, those 3 planks, that's year 1 of adoption. And when do you have that? Well, you kind of got 75% regulatory acceptance since we got these ETFs. Not all, most. When we have IBIT trading on the options market, that's a big step forward. And when you can do in-kind create and redemptions of the ETFs, you've got full regulatory acceptance of the asset. Then January 2025, fair value accounting becomes the norm. And now you've got accounting acceptance. And now you can mark up and mark down the asset just like Apple stock or just like other assets. And then when you have too big to fail banks, when you have the BNY Mellons of the world or the JP Morgans of the world, or the State Streets of the world, they custody the Bitcoin or they buy and they sell and they hold the Bitcoin. You'll have banking acceptance. And what are banks? Banks are just institutions that are engineered to be custodians of financial assets. So of course, the greatest custodians of assets in the world need to custody this asset. So we're right in the middle of that, and I think maybe 2025 you can call year 1 of the institutional era of digital capital, that thing which is Bitcoin.
So all signs point to us just being a lot earlier than we previously thought in the Bitcoin bull cycle. So sit back, relax, and continue stacking in these consolidation levels. Stack with Swan and get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with 0 fees. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching for Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. We have the fastest and easiest onboarding in the industry. You go from sign up to purchasing and sending real Bitcoin to your own wallet within minutes. Front run the institutional era of digital capital today with Swan. That's it for today. Let me know where you think we are in the cycle in the comments below. Like this video and share it with your impatient friends and family. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more Bitcoin signal. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.